At Ascension, we are free to question. And I was wondering whether the Hebrew women liked beards. Hebrews certainly liked the beard of Aaron. It's compared to how good it is to live together, oil running down the beard of Aaron. But according to a couple of studies, one in 2008 and one in 2013, women these days like stubble. Stubble is most attractive, according to two big studies. Beards, not too bad. Beards are a sign of good parenting, perhaps, or maybe that person would be a good father. But stubble, that's what's really attractive these days. It's true. And if in the heterosexual world men are seen as attracted by stubble, women must be attractive by distressed jeans. Yeah, that's according to Glamour magazine. All the right fashion models are wearing distressed jeans. Bella Hadid opted for baggy jeans with drooping rips, but her sister Gigi Hadid is Glamour's all-time fave for ripped jeans. She taught us how to make the look work midwinter. Haley Baldwin balanced out tuffed-up ripped jeans with a pretty blouse for the perfect spring outfit. And Kendall Jenner could easily wear her ripped jeans look all day and then out to dinner with friends in the evening. And if you think it's just ladies wearing ripped jeans, no. Actually, you can get male selvage denim holy water jeans for a mere $895. And evidently men like Kanye West are snapping them up like hotcakes at that price. The brand that sells such jeans, Fear of God. You can't make this stuff up, can you? It's kind of crazy, but I think actually deep in that impetus of the human condition is actually a spiritual component. There's actually something that we are touching and tasting. Women perhaps like attractive stubble on their male partners because it conveys some grittiness, some fact that the man has been around and has faced some vulnerability and has something to offer emotionally, can show up in an emotional relationship. And perhaps that's the same with the ripped denim. I don't know. What's true is that creating distressed jeans has some distressing aspects, some environmental problems that are huge and some damage to people in other parts of the world that make those jeans. But that's a sermon for another day. What I'm pointing at is something that Thomas knew. Thomas wanted to see the wounds. Before Thomas would believe that that was really Jesus that showed up, Thomas wanted to see the wounds. He wanted to see the rips in Jesus' flesh. Now, why was Thomas not there when Jesus showed up the first time? Well, because his friends were locked in the room for fear of the Jews, for fear of the same people that had crucified Jesus, the Romans and the Jews. Where was Thomas? Thomas, it seems, maybe was out doing what Jesus had always taught us to do, healing the sick, clothing the naked, feeding the poor. And he comes back, and the disciples are all excited. They've seen the resurrected Jesus. And Thomas is skeptical. Because why did the resurrected Jesus show up to these guys who were all afraid? Why didn't he show up to me who was out doing the work? And so he says, I will believe in your Messiah, the resurrected Messiah, when I see the rips, when I see the marks, and I know that it's the Messiah that has the ability to be there in human suffering. That's the Christ that I know. In the U.S., we have this unique lauding and elevation of the individual. We see the Marlboro man out there on the plains on his horse, rugged, having been through the tough parts of life. We trust that if someone is successful, they've paid their dues, they've done their work, they've been in the ring, they've sweat their brow, they've bled a little bit, they've pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, they've done what's necessary, they've faced their vulnerability. And yet more and more often, we're seeing people who are wildly successful who haven't done that. And deep down, I think they know it. And so at least they will wear the visage of that, even if it cost them $895. Brian Dias and Carrie Ressler did a different type of study, not about male facial hair, but about mice and a chemical called acetophenone. And this chemical has a very strong almond smell. And what Dias and Ressler did is they paired this smell with electric shocks that cause pain to the mice. And they did it in such a way that over a period of time, the mice became conditioned to the smell, and anytime they smelled that, they assumed that they would feel pain. So much so that their physiological response was actually one of pain. They had the same manifestations in their little bodies of pain of the electric shocks. But what was so remarkable about this study is that these two went on to study the offspring of these mice. And what they found was the children of these mice also experienced the same response to that smell. Now, you might expect that. Growing up with your father who's experienced this awful tragedy, there'd be some kind of conveyance, right, of this worry about this smell. But these were mice, these offspring were created in vitro. They had never come in contact with their fathers. They were out of a petri dish. This was translated at the genetic level in the sperm. And what was even more remarkable than that is that the grandchildren of these same mice carried that same terror of the smell of that almond smell, suggesting a different kind of distressed genes. Suggesting that pain and suffering leaps generations genetically without our choice. The apostles give us this beautiful vision today in the book of Acts. Now the whole group of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and no one claimed private ownership of any possessions, but everything they owned was held in common. Isn't that a beautiful vision? It's kind of like that psalm. Oh, isn't it great when brethren live together? Isn't it wonderful when two people who love each other in a marriage come together and celebrate? Isn't it wonderful when a family comes together and is so knit together? Isn't it wonderful when a church or a community comes together and cares for one another and shares the things, the material wealth? Isn't that a great vision? And yet what Thomas teaches us and what Jesus showed us is that if we can't show up for each other in the places of our woundedness and our brokenness, we can't really trust that any of the other depth of community will come. A 2014, a study that just came out by the Government Accountability Office shows there are amazing disparities, regardless of disciplinary action, for students of color in schools. They studied all different types of disciplinary action, all different types of students, all different kinds of infractions. And while black students represent 15.5% of all public school students, They make up 39% of students suspended from school. And this starts as early as preschool. A 2014 study found that people generally view black boys as older and less innocent starting at the age of 10. Children in most societies, the report says, are considered to be in a distinct group with characteristics such as innocence and the need for protection. But this study found that black boys can be seen as responsible for their actions at an age when white boys still benefit from the assumption that children are essentially innocent. And another study following up on this one in 2017 produced similar results for black girls. It found that from ages 5 to 14, respondents were more likely to say that black girls of those ages, compared to white girls, need less nurturing, less protection, to be supported less, to be comforted less, and are more independent. They're more likely to know about adult topics, and they're more likely to know about sexual relations. The researchers described this function as adultification of black girls and black boys. Imagine if you share these qualities of visage and image and how your life is shaped differently than if you don't. Imagine how things that have happened to 2 generations ago are still affecting genetically, at a genetic level, people today. How can we, who get to avoid so much of the suffering in the world, whether it's that we don't have to have a job sandblasting distressed jeans, or whether it's that we don't have to grow up in a preschool that kicks us out because it's biased against us, how can we who avoid that kind of suffering join in deeper solidarity with those who live that kind of suffering? How can we de-stress the genes of others? How can we join in bringing about the apostles' vision in Stillwater, Minnesota, in our state of Minnesota, in the world? How can we show up and acknowledge the wounds in others and stand with those who are wounded? Clarence Skinner said, "The beloved community is not an organization of individuals. It's a new adventure of consecrated men and women seeking a new world who forget themselves in their passion to find the common life where the good of all is the quest of each." We are those consecrated men and women. We've been consecrated by our baptism. We become reconsecrated every time we renew those vows. We get to be part of that community, the community of wounds, the community of the beloved, the community of shared everything. And we get to participate in that quest, where the quest for each is the good of all.